variant.
Yeah.
That
that can get very nasty if the whole world now starts to care about the UK
exactly.
variant. It will be brutal. I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good.
We're going to repeat it all over again.
Exactly.
Just to give you a brief of what questions I came up with, because I don't think that I got some questions on your end.
No.
So let me just kind of give you a quick brief, and we can correct them if you want beforehand. So there are no surprises, as you can imagine. So that's not what we're aiming for. So obviously the first question will be around like introduction. That's clear. Then I wanted to say, hey, let's talk about just a little bit of intro about Prezi, because I don't know, there may be somebody who hasn't heard about it yet. I don't know, like let's just with 1 or 2 sentences describe Prezi, and then what happened with Prezi in the last few months, because I think that is very, very interesting. I mean, the whole Prezi video thing and all of the changes in the editor and all of those things, I think would be really cool to discuss very quickly. Then I wrote down to ask you, can we talk a little bit in one way or the other about what's next there? Like, is it possible to just mention something, or should we skip this?
No, you can bring it up. Like we're working on things that are not, I mean, there's some bigger things that are going to happen later on that I can't talk about, but there's a couple of things that I could mention.
Okay, perfect. Then, because you're so much into virtual presentations, obviously, then is the question, hey, what changed and what do you advise the people that you work with to kind of rethink and do differently, right? These are, again, this is something that I believe would be super helpful to the people who are listening to the podcast. We have one question that's related to that is at the end, where we ask, hey, who do you think we should invite next? Do you have somebody on top of your head who is a great presenter, or just for some reason he or she is connected with the world of presentations and cares about that world? Like, do you have somebody?
Okay, I'll think about that one.
Yeah, you can throw in any name or just say we'll follow up on not that big of a deal. And then obviously, where can people connect, etc. So anything that you want us to add, like, what do you think? So Prezi and virtual are the two things. Obviously,
I mean, like, I'm happy to talk about like lots of things. Like I'm really getting into your podcast, by the way. So I'm working my way through the episodes.
Okay.
I like the question that you ask about what's a mistake that you see people make. Because there's a couple of nice things that I can talk about there that are pretty positive. And yeah, anything under presentations, storytelling. I do a lot of stuff around the psychology of decision making. Like, so I can riff on a lot of things in that way, and I can tee that up a little bit or give it context by, when you ask me the intro questions, I'll talk a bit about how I got into presentations, which was I started with a presentation design agency.
Okay.
And then how it morphed into Prezi and things like that. But so yeah, feel free to take it wherever if you want to go off script a bit.
Perfect. I mean, there would be for sure something that will go off script. I mean, for sure, but kind of the overall structure, right?
Yeah.
Is set, let's say, and we know about it. So yeah. Okay, should we hit it? Because we also have a podcast in 11. So we have 45, 50 minutes to do some damage.
Okay, let's do it.
Sounds cool.
How's the sound? Everything okay?
Yep. What about me? Is it okay on your end?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, sounds good. So a little bit of silence and then we'll fire this up. Hey there, and welcome to episode number 31 of season 2 of the World of Presentations podcast, brought to you by us at presentation agency 356 Labs. I'm Boris, the founder of the company and your host for this episode. And today we have someone from Prezi joining us to chat. His name is Spencer, and he is the Director of Brand Communications at Prezi. However, Spencer is also going to be one of your speakers at our upcoming conference in April, Present to Succeed. And yeah, before I throw it out to him to introduce himself, I just wanted to say that I love what he wrote on his LinkedIn cover photo. Spencer, we didn't chat about that, but he wrote, move your team from a state of fatigue to a state of engagement. How about that? Spencer, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about your background, because I saw and I know that even before you joined Prezi, where you went through numerous interesting roles, you had quite an interesting backstory.
Hi, Boris. Welcome. I am very excited to be here. I think even before we get into an introduction, can we just say what an amazing podcast you have? It's
Thank
so
you.
nice to have so many amazing people all caring about the world of presentations, all passionate about the world of presentations. And I think anybody who listens to this podcast can learn so much from you and from the guests. So well done on a great job. It's really a great podcast.
Thanks for that. I'm trying to improve. I'm constantly hearing feedback from people who are giving me advices on how to improve. And everyone who is listening and gave those advices, I'm listening to you guys. You see that I'm replying and trying to do it even better. So back to you now.
So yeah, my name's Spencer. As you can hear from the accent, I'm originally from the UK, but I haven't lived there for quite some time now. So I've lived and worked in Australia, Israel, and now I'm in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Been here for about 5 years. And I guess, I've been really passionate about presentations for a long time. And my journey really started back in about 2007. When I co-founded a marketing agency together with somebody else in Israel. And for those that don't know Israel very well, it's like a huge place for startups and the tech world. And that's where we based ourselves. And, one day we had a customer come to us with 21 presentations that they said, can you help us make these look better? And of course, it was like 3-day turnaround or something crazy. And we were a new business. So you kind of say, yes, of course, we can do that. No problem. And and that was that moment where I realized not only that there was a need in the market, but actually the power that presentations have, because those presentations were actually going to decide or help to decide whether a company was bought or not. So that kind of really started the journey, and the agency eventually became like a presentations agency. And a lot of my experience back then was around planning and designing presentations. And then in 2014, I kind of met Prezi and joined them back then. And been doing many different roles since then in the last 7 years, from started out as a UK country manager to today, obviously doing like a brand communications role. And I guess when I look at the last 7 years, a lot of the things that I've been focused on is, how to deliver a presentation, and going quite deep into things like the psychology of, how people make decisions, what people remember, because I think that's, the psychology side or the neuroscience side is also really important. So yeah, quite a varied mix of things, but all connected to presentations.
Yeah, the neuroscience part is for sure fascinating, and it's so exciting to see that there are new things coming up from that field more or less every day, right? I mean, it is super interesting. Now, about Prezi, I'm sure that, or let's put it this way, I think that everyone knows Prezi, or at least everyone has heard and seen a Prezi. However, for the few, very, very few people that still it doesn't ring a bell to them, tell us a little bit about Prezi.
Sure. So Prezi started in 2009. And it's still today the only presentation software that's not based on a linear slide-by-slide approach. It's a 3D zoomable canvas that you can do amazing visual storytelling on that canvas. So it's in essence a presentation software, but undergone a lot of changes in the last kind of 12 years.
Yeah. So exactly about the changes. There are so many things that happened in the last probably 6 or 12 months. You correct me if I'm wrong here. What happened? Like in those 6 to 12 months, like you released some interesting improvements and new tech,
Yeah.
very new tech that people, or at least I think the presentation world got fascinated with. Like there was a little bit about what changed.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the story goes back a little bit further than the last 12 months. I mean, with one of the benefits that we have with 100 million customers is you see a lot of presentation behavior. And we can learn a lot from that. And we started to see, even if you go back, say, 3 years, we started to see a group of people, primarily salespeople, that started doing something very different, which we kind of took and packaged as conversational presenting. And conversational presenting was this idea that, okay, it's getting, I was going to say it's getting harder, but I think the days are gone that you can turn up with a 20-minute pitch and just go through that. The internet changed who has information, and people have a lot of information by the time they actually call you. So, and we can maybe talk a bit more about conversational presenting later, but what we started seeing is the salespeople were doing more and more of this kind of conversational presenting, and they were taking it more and more into video conferencing, because also gone are the days where you're always in a room with somebody. You were starting, more and more people were starting to do this presenting in a video environment. And we started looking at it and thinking this can be much better than a simple screen sharing of a presentation, because again, this hints into the conversation about psychology, but Boris as well, that a big part of decision making is somebody has to emotionally connect to what it is that you're talking about, and the best way for them to do that is to see you as the presenter, to see the emotion on your face, to see how you react to things, so that human connection is super, super important. And what we wanted to be able to do was to have the presenter and the content on the screen at the same time. So, the presenter didn't disappear down to some postage stamp size picture that, that's when people start checking their phone and let the dog out and all kinds of things. So that's what Prezi video kind of became, was this idea of how can we have the presenter and the content on the screen at the same time. And yeah, we had no idea. We launched in November 2019 after some beta testing and things like that. Yeah, we launched literally 3 or 4 months before one of the biggest changes to the planet was about to happen. And we had absolutely no idea. And yeah, and it just took off, because what we saw is teachers led the way, because teachers were the first to be, affected, because the classes were shut down and they just jumped on it as a way to do, online distance learning. And then, yeah, we saw businesses follow, both for, okay, I need to present to a customer, but also for internal presenting. So yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, and I can say this is, correct me here, but was that because you said it's now called Prezi Video, so that people know what they should be searching for?
Yeah.
Was this product called Prezi AR first?
It did. That's how it started out. We basically had the opportunity that we couldn't pass up to help somebody who was going to talk at the main TED conference, who could not get to Vancouver because of a family situation. So we basically recreated a TED stage in our Prezi office in San Francisco and beamed him. It was Robert Sapolsky, if you go and look at the talk on TED.com. And yeah, we beamed him and his presentation to the stage in TED. And I think that was, one of the most stressful beta testing you can ever do. But what it just showed was the power of what we'd created. And what we saw at that point was, yeah, it was great to use that tool for something like a TED talk, but actually the real power or the real value is giving people that tool that they can use quickly every day. And that's where we then almost pivoted a bit in terms of how it was built to make it, something that people could use for everyday meetings and everyday type presentations.
And the cool part of all of that is that, before I ask you, because I'm a very curious person, before I ask you what's next, like it is great to have somebody from inside of the company to tell us, hey, this is coming, you know. So before I ask you about that part, I don't know whether or not people, because not that many people, at least with our customers, still have exported in detail. Many people, by the way, just to give you feedback here, have seen something and they're like, we have seen this thing and it looked like this. What is it? What is it? I'm like, you have seen Prezi video. They're like, Prezi video? Is that Prezi? I'm like, yeah. But I don't think that many people understand how easy you made it actually for people to work with it. It is just the templates that you have, right? You can start from the templates, right?
Yeah.
But then the whole uh, the whole idea of the speaker being there and the presentation being next to him or to the person who is presenting is just through the camera of the tool that you're using, and you made it possible to use that in any tool available out there. Like Microsoft Teams can do that, Zoom can do that, Cisco WebEx can do that. You can do it on any platform. The Mac OS, the Windows side is just very, very simple. And I think there were some really great introduction videos to how to do it on your YouTube channel for any platform and any case, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically Prezi Video operates as a virtual camera. So you can use Prezi Video anywhere where you can choose which camera you want to do. So like, for example, in Zoom, when you choose your camera, it just says Prezi virtual camera and off you go. And you're right. That's what we wanted, is for people to have the ability to create something quickly in their lunch break. And then it doesn't matter whether using MS Teams, Zoom, WebEx, Hopin, whatever, they choose that Prezi virtual camera and they can present with themselves and the content on the screen at the same time.
Yeah. So what's next? What's next? What can you tell us?
I wish I could tell you. There are some things on the horizon that are super, super exciting, but I can't tell them just yet.
Sure.
But we have been working on a lot of things, such as video in video, which we recently launched the first stage of. And there's more to come on that, because obviously, the ability to have a video on the screen with you playing at the same time is super powerful. And also things like screen sharing. Because sometimes you want to flip between the Prezi video presentation, maybe you want to pull in a PDF from somewhere else. So the ability to do cool things like that. And then there's a list of some pretty cool stuff heading this way.
And they're all related and all touching the Prezi video product.
Yeah, Prezi video, I think what we've seen is, for sure, right now it's at fever pitch level in terms of virtual presentations. But as someone who's been a remote worker myself for 8 years, what I see is, even when hopefully quickly things go back to some level of normalcy, it's going to be hybrid. I think you've seen so many companies now that are like, okay, yeah, we are going to go back to office. Maybe the office is going to look different. We're going to have much more in terms of remote employees, because that's how people are recruiting already. So I think what we see is, as much as there's fever pitch right now, this is a marathon in terms of people are going to be presenting this way. It was already happening. That's why we launched this product back in 2019. And I think when you see some of the mega trends going on out there in the market, such as, the rise of video, all social platforms are rewarding video content. You've got, $1 billion training industry that's all about video now. You've got 5G coming online. There's a lot of mega things that are pushing video to the front. So yeah, I think this is how we're going to be doing presentations moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, there is no going back. That is for sure. That is for sure. So we are talking obviously about remote, about virtual.
Yeah.
You said that a lot of people, you announced the product and the product was in beta testing way before the COVID hit.
Yeah.
What is so different? Like, let's start actually here. You see a lot of, as you said, you have millions of customers who are presenting in one way or the other based on your product. You can see what not see, but you can analyze the behavior. What is, when you are working with the people around you, what do you see people do wrong? Meaning, compared to the in-person version of the presentation, what is so different that people still get it wrong when they start presenting virtually, or when they prepare to deliver a presentation in a virtual setup or environment, if you wish?
Yeah. Wow, that's a big question.
Sure.
I could riff on this for a long time. I guess that there's certain categories here. There's
Yeah.
some technical stuff, which are what I consider to be like the quick wins.
Okay.
There's some general presentation skills, which I think is, which is stuff that was always important, whether you're presenting in a room or whether you're presenting virtually. And then I think the third bucket is confidence and this thing about being on camera. So I think like when you look at the technical stuff, then, which I guess has been talked about a lot already now, but, things like the camera level with your eyes, no ceilings in view, what you're wearing, good sound, good lighting, all these things that, and again, easily researchable about how you can fix those things. But I think those are important because sound and lighting are definitely a big part of it. And then I think beyond that, there's some kind of behavioral changes. So, when I knew that we were going to be launching Prezi Video out into the market, and I'm somebody who's spent the last, 6 years talking from hundreds of stages all around the world. And I considered myself somebody pretty comfortable presenting. And I thought, okay, hang on, like we're going to launch this product in a few months and I want to start getting an idea. So I launched a YouTube channel. I didn't tell anybody. I just started creating videos and I sucked. And I was like, okay, I need to learn some new stuff. And what I started to discover is, little things like put in a photograph of one person next to the camera. So it felt like I was having a conversation with one person. So that was the first thing that I learned. And then the next thing I learned was, okay, I need to be, and I call it like the 20% rule, but you need to be 20% more animated in your movement, your voice level, because it may sound really strange when you do it and it may feel really uncomfortable when you do it. But when you watch that video back, it looks great because it takes you a little bit past that normal relaxed feeling.
Mm.
What I also discovered is by raising your voice 20%, it eliminates filler words, which is another
Wow.
thing you have to fight, you have to deal with. Because when you raise your voice by 20%, it's not your natural relaxed level. And filler words tend to come when you're relaxed and you're talking fast. And so there's a lot of benefits to learning some of these quick skills that just practice a few times. And I always say to people, that's the number one thing, is just do it as much as you can.
Yeah.
Launch a channel, don't tell anybody about it. Record videos, don't show them to anybody. But the more that you do it, the more confident that you get. And I think that's, confidence. One of the things, and I learned this from all of my, research into decision making, and it's biology. We're all the same. Everybody's scared of being on camera. It's just that some people figure out how to override those feelings. And it's that thing about practicing and understanding that the more you do something, the easier it becomes. It's no different to when you're scared of flying. What's the antidote? You have to fly a lot. What happens if you're scared of spiders? What's the antidote? Be around spiders a lot. And it's the same with the whole thing about it feels weird to be on camera. Be on camera a lot. So yeah, there's a lot of things that go into this. How do I get better? And then the final thing I'd say is like, one of the things I personally love about Prezi Video is I have these graphics on the screen with me at the same time, which acts as a bit of a signpost or a signal to, okay, what am I talking about? But also it's a little bit of a distraction. So you've got both me and the content on the screen. So it kind of boosts that engagement for people, because one of the things that we learned from the world of movies and Hollywood is what did Hollywood learn about attention? That movement is really powerful because it spikes dopamine in the brain. And that's why if you watch the latest James Bond movie, the camera angle changes every 7 seconds because that spikes dopamine. So the movement of the graphics, the movement of you on the screen is really powerful to kind of keep engagement and keep people, connected to what it is that you're saying.
Yeah, which also means that if you're planning to create a Prezi, or if you are on camera, but especially if you have visuals, it's probably not a good idea. And I don't know what you are seeing with your customers on the Prezi side, but we see still a lot of people, first of all, not investing in what you said about the tech part, right?
Yeah.
They still do it the old way, and they still consider it completely fine that it's just madness. You can barely hear them, you can barely see them, not to mention where the camera should be, etc., etc. And these are, as you said, quick fixes that make a huge impression on people,
Yeah.
right? And you want to, I think that people want to create a good impression, right?
Yeah.
And yet still when you tell them, hey guys, invest, right? These are not that expensive things, and you buy them once and you reuse them so many times, right? And you will use them probably in the next few years, because both video and audio, these things don't change that much, right?
Yeah.
They are not exactly, I don't know, they are not like, I was going to use the analogy with phones, but phones also didn't change that much in the last few years.
Yeah.
But they're not those things that change that often, and yet they make a huge impression on everybody.
Yeah.
But back on what you said about the 7 seconds, that is very interesting. Moving the frame, having some movement or the different angle on the camera, that probably means that if you are planning to create something that's visual, you should be planning for that thing to also move, or something to be happening there
Yeah.
every now and then. Don't stick on one frame, right, for very long, right?
Definitely. You're right. Yeah. It's one of those things where, and this brings in another element to it, because one of the other things we see more and more where people are having success is where the presentation becomes more conversational and to be more two-way. Now, what can happen sometimes is you may have something on the screen, but then you start getting into a conversation about that topic. And one of the things, like what I do with Prezi Video, is I have hotkeys 1, 2, and 3. So I can press number 2 and the graphics just disappear from the screen. So I can then have that conversation. And then when it feels like, okay, now I can go back to my presentation, I just hit the button and it comes back up. So I think like you can use little things like that to control it. But yeah, the other thing is don't have any graphic on the screen for too long. So to keep it moving. And sometimes, if the graphic's not moving, then make sure, how are you moving, with hand gestures or smiling or just slightly moving your head. So there's a lot of things that you can do to stimulate engagement through things like movement.
And just because we were talking about Prezi and presenting virtually and all of that stuff, let's quickly mention you joining us for our conference. You are going to be speaking on the Saturday. Yeah, Saturday.
Yes, Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the second day of the event, or the third one, depending on how you count them, because of the master classes. Tell us a little bit about what should people expect in that session, like just an overview of what are they going to see and learn there.
Yeah, so for sure, I'll show Prezi Video and the capabilities that it has, for sure. But I think one of the most powerful things I can help people with is, how do you get somebody's attention and how do you keep engagement once you've got it? I think those two elements are super critical for everything that we're doing in virtual presentations these days. So we'll have some good takeaways that people can implement the next day.
Okay, and you said that you're also very much into the world of storytelling, into the world of neuroscience, psychology, and all of that stuff. Like, obviously I'm mentioning 3 completely different things here, but what do you see? What do you see in the business world and with your customers? Do they care about, first of all, do they know what storytelling really is? And do they spend the time to prepare their stories as they should? Especially, maybe I need to ask, especially when they have an important talk, right? Not just for any, but for the important. Like, what is your experience there?
Another big topic.
Yeah.
So, I'll start with this, and we touched on this a little bit at the beginning. Like when you look at how somebody makes a decision, they first need to emotionally connect to something, and then they need to trust that it's a good idea. So when you put together a presentation, you need to start by helping somebody emotionally connect at a subconscious level to what it is you can help them do in the future. And the best way to do that is story. So if you start your presentation with a story that describes a place in the future that that person can get to, on a subconscious level, they're going, yes, please, I would like that. Now, what happens, because we're rational beings, our conscious brain, the brain that people are using right now to listen to this, our rational brain kicks in and goes, yeah, but do I trust this person? Can they do what they say that they can do? What proof do I have? What evidence do I have? And that's where you need to have, in the second half of, stuff that you're going to talk about, is evidence and proof. That could be data, customer stories, customer testimonials, research, whatever it is. So emotional connection and trust, they're the two important things. Now, when you look at storytelling, I think the second biggest thing that I see where people have success is where they make the audience the hero of the story that they're telling, not them or the brand. And I think what a lot of people slip into, because we've had 4 decades of doing this, is the brand is the hero. We're going to rush in and save the day with whatever our product is. But what you see is all of the most successful examples of storytelling are where your audience can put themselves into the shoes of that hero of that story and go, that's me, that's like me. And yes, I also have those same challenges and I want to do the same thing. So I think the structure of that story is really important and how it's built. And also to have some struggle in it, because, and this is a really hard one, because nobody wants to have struggle in their story, but it's a very natural part. Everything everybody does has struggle. And I think what you can show is, because if we go back to, okay, look at the characters in a story, what role should we be playing as the presenter or as the brand? We're playing the allies, the friends. If you look at Harry Potter, he had Hermione and a group of others helping him. If you look at Frodo in Lord of the Rings, he had Sam Gamgee helping him all the way. Every movie, every story has friends and allies. That's your role. So you can show struggle, but you show how, as the friends and allies, that you can actually overcome that kind of struggle. So I think
Let's see. I think we lost you, so let's record that down.
And things like this.
Wait for a sec, because we lost you for 10 seconds. So we are going to edit that, no worries. So the last things that you were about to say was, so I think, and it dropped. So if you can go from there.
What was the last sentence you heard me?
So it was, you started with the friends and the allies and everything else. And then you started the sentence with, so I think that, and it dropped. So if we can start with, so I think that whatever, and let's move on from there. I'm writing down the minute, so I'll edit that out and you won't even notice it.
Okay, so I'll go back to where I started talking about friends and allies, and then that's
cool. Yeah, valid. Let's go.
So when you look at how the structure of a story is built, what role do we play as the brand or as the presenter? We're playing the ally or the friend that helps the hero get over the struggles that they have in their mission or whatever it is that they're trying to achieve. If you look at any movie, this role is there. If you look at Lord of the Rings, Frodo has Sam Gamgee. If you look at Harry Potter, he has Hermione Granger. So think about showing the struggle, because it's very natural and people know that it's going to be there, but show how you help them overcome that. So I think things like this are really important when we're putting stories together, and helps people do that or have that emotional connection to what it is that you're going to help them do.
Yeah, I think that many people, at least when we work with our customers, we also push them to think that they are not the speakers themselves, the presenter themselves are not the heroes of the stories, but they're, as you said, the friends, but we use the word mentors, because if you think about also friends or whatever, but you are the mentor, you know the answers of all of the challenges that your audience will face. They trust you because mentors, the mentor, in the role of the mentor is that this is somebody that's being trusted, right? And this person is also expert, right? He has the knowledge, he has the expertise, and he is the person that people are looking at, the heroes are looking at towards, right, to just help them. And this is, if you think about it in this way for presentations, is so true. It is so true that we play that role of as the mentor and not as the heroes, but the audience is the hero. They leave the story, they leave the presentation changed, right? Yeah. So we are talking about the audience here, obviously, and trying to figure out who they are in the storytelling context. How important is understanding the audience, in your opinion? Like, what is your take on that one?
The obvious answer is yes. Of course, it's important. You know, and there's I guess a couple of things that you can do. The one that I recommend for every time you do a presentation, or even if you're just going into a meeting, I use it for this as well, is there is somebody called Andrew Abella who created something called the Think Do Matrix. And the Think Do Matrix is basically 4 boxes that you fill in. What does my audience think now about this topic? And what do I want them to think after I've given the presentation? And the same for do. What's the action that they're doing right now? And what's the action that I want them to do after I've spoken or given my presentation? And because of my obsession with storytelling and emotional connection, I added a 3rd box, which was feel. How does somebody feel about this right now? And how do you want them to feel about it afterwards? Because when you ask questions about how does somebody feel about something, that's when you start to get to the crux of how do you emotionally connect to somebody. So now, to make that easier, if it's an audience or a type of person that you present to a lot or you speak to a lot, then you can start to get into empathy mapping. And empathy mapping is just this idea about, you know, building up this picture of how people feel about something. You know, what are the motivations? What are the struggles? Where do people go to for help? Who are the voices that they listen to? And you can Google empathy mapping. You'll find a lot of stuff out there. But that's something I always recommend. If it's a one-off and you don't know who they are at all, then it's really hard to do empathy mapping. But you can still do the think, do, feel process, and that should help as well.
Yeah. What do they think, do, or feel? And what do you want them to think, do, and feel after?
Yeah.
That's a very good advice, I think. Like that is so, if you just write those down as questions and you answer them yourself, I think everyone will be like in a very good position to create a presentation that truly influences at the end and influences the audience and resonates with the audience and with their audience.
Yeah, and it also has the benefit that it can help you plan what to put in that presentation. Because if you're going to be ruthless, you can say, if it doesn't help make those 3 changes happen, doesn't need to be in the presentation, or you don't need to talk about it. So yeah, I think having empathy is definitely an important skill.
Yeah, and yet it's so hard. I mean, that is just so hard. You spend so much time, and people and presenters should be spending so much time in that part. We also push our customers to, we try to obviously define the goal of the presentation and more or less use exactly what you are saying here, because as you said, we use that as filter, right? Once we throw in an idea on the table or on a sticky note or on their whiteboards or whatever, we ask, hey, like, is that idea supporting the message that we want to convey in front of the people that are going to be there? Right? Is it a yes? Is it a no? That doesn't mean that the idea itself is wrong for some reason. It's just maybe it's not for this presentation, right? And actually, in the previous episode, I had Simon, who is the founder of iFu Presentations. I think you probably know
Yeah,
him.
I know Simon. Yeah.
Yeah, so we talked about the case where we saw the CEO of a company and the CCO of a very big bank, the chief commercial officer, brainstorming on a whiteboard, and the CCO is like super detailed data, or like he is the logical type of person, crunches numbers, gets the insights, incredible guy. But then he wrote a lot of ideas on the whiteboard for a document that we were asked to help them with. And we entered the room and they asked us to wait for a second because they were in the middle of this discussion. And the first thing that I heard, and the only thing that I heard was the CEO asking the CCO, hey, how is this, pointing to the idea, helping us convey the message that we want to convey when you know who is going to read this?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, now hopefully more people will see situations like this in the real world, and hopefully that will make them think, and hopefully that will make them realize why are those people on those roles, right? Because having that understanding for how to pitch an idea, understanding that there is a goal in every presentation and the importance of the audience who is going to consume that, be that a virtual talk or a document for that matter, right?
Yeah.
That is just fundamental, right? It's just fundamental.
100%. That's always the North Star that you should have.
Yeah.
I think
it doesn't. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it also opens up like another topic, which is data storytelling or data visualization, and
Okay.
that completely maps to what you just said. That when you show data, so if you've got somebody who's really data orientated, detail orientated, is that their job still has to be to reveal the meaning to the audience. So, I think like there's a lot of things that you can do with data, from how you describe a number to how you use color to what data sources that you use that help reveal the meaning. And I think that's the, the spirit of it is how do you make it so your audience will connect to it?
Yeah. It's a whole new field, right? I mean, data visualization is a completely different field, but it became so important nowadays, at least in the last 3 or 4 years. There is just more or less almost no presentation out there where you don't get to a data point.
Yeah.
Like be that a single number or some type of a chart or a graph, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's easy things that, because data visualization is a topic that you can take to the extreme. And you can, it's without end almost. But, what you see on a day-to-day basis is lots of people will take a chart from somewhere else and they'll put it into their presentation. And I think that, by turning everything to gray that's not relevant and having one bar or one point or one line that's bright color. So what that does is it signals to your audience, oh, this is what they want me to look at. And then you as the presenter can explain the meaning and why it's important. So I think it's always that thing about you want the attention on you as the presenter and not people getting lost in what's on the screen. So, this.
Yeah, hopefully people are listening to you very carefully and taking notes though, because data is obviously in the everyday life of many business professionals. And the advice that you gave, hey, just make everything gray. Ask yourself, what is exactly that I want to communicate, and then just color that one. That makes it as simple as it should be, right? But many people, I don't know, but like we see when you push people to simplify, many times we have heard this initial response, immediate response from them that they say, wait, but aren't people going to think that I oversimplified it so much that I didn't do my job right? I was like, well, no. It's exactly what you are actually asked to do, right? Yeah. And that is actually the hardest thing to do. It's not just just copy paste the whole table from Excel into the tool or to the whatever platform you may be using. It's just extract the insight and try to convey that insight in the most simple manner. And that requires a lot of effort, like a lot.
Yeah, I think that's, for me, you hit on one of the biggest things with I get asked a lot, okay, how can I be better at presentations? And I always say it's two things. One is 10x the amount of time you spend on the next one. Because
that is great start. Okay, let's go there.
Because, and I'm sure like even to double is a good start, but that gives you more time to think about the content, more time to edit the content, more time to find better images, more time to plan what you're going to say, more time to practice how you're delivering it. And if you practice more, then you need less information on the screen because you don't need it as a crutch. So it's boring and we're all busy, but 10x the amount of time you spend on that presentation that matters, and you'll see a huge, huge improvement. And the second thing I always say is really care about presentations.
Wow.
Because they have a lot of power for you. They can, if you have the ability to be a good presenter, it will lift you up a level or two in terms of how people will see you. If you're going to go beyond mid-management, you have to be good at presenting. You have to be good at communication. If you want to get that job, you've got to be better at communicating and presenting than the next person. So I always say that, like, even before you get to, I need to do a presentation for whatever it is, it's for you personally, it can have a huge amount of power on your life. And it's a skill that is only growing in importance. So I think care about it more and, spend more time on it, because at the end of the day, I always think, like, don't forget, inside the word presentation is the word present. You're giving somebody a present, an experience that's going to help them go do that audacious thing that they want to do.
I was about to ask you who should be our next guest, but like, okay, let's go there. Like, who should be our next guest? What do you think?
I think I'm spending a lot of time with people at the moment who are really pushing the boundaries of how can we be more engaging in virtual presentations and in virtual moments. So I would definitely have someone like Brian Fanzo on the show, or someone called Rich and Mulholland. Two people that are doing really exciting stuff in virtual space and virtual presentations.
So here we go again. The names:
Rich Mulholland.
Rich Mulholland.
He's based out of South Africa, and Brian Fanzo, who's in the US.
That sounds very interesting. And I personally don't know those guys, so everyone who is on the podcast, check those people out. I'll definitely make sure that we find their profiles on LinkedIn. Maybe they're on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So last question. I wanted to use your last statements about caring and about 10xing, or at least doubling the effort. But last question, where can people find you? Where can people connect with you? What is the best place?
LinkedIn. Definitely, that's where I spend a lot of time. So yeah, just search for Spencer Waldron on LinkedIn. Always happy to connect. I share a lot of video content, just giving tips and tricks on obviously virtual presenting at the moment. So I'm about to drop a video about how can you get somebody to switch their camera on when you're about to present to them, because that's another issue that we have.
Okay, I can confirm that you're doing a lot of videos on LinkedIn. That is, I can confirm. Like, just follow. If you're not going to connect, at least follow Spencer so that you're seeing his videos on LinkedIn, because they're great. And you're always using Prezi video in very creative ways. So, I mean, that is also a great way for people to see what's possible, right? What is possible. Are you, by the way, are you making your Prezi videos? Or
yes.
Okay, that is, wow, that is nice. So I thought that you have a design team behind you
we do have a design team, so they help many speakers and things like that. But no, I always do my own visuals. But that's, I started out back in 2007 with a design agency, so I picked up a few things along the way.
Perfect. So everyone, we are going to link all of the LinkedIn profile of Spencer, obviously the Prezi video product, so that you can check it out. So go in the show notes, take a look at those things. Spencer, thanks again for spending this 40-50 minutes on the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it also.
I did very much.
Yeah, perfect. So for everyone, the show notes will have absolutely everything that Spencer talked about. Also, you will find the link to the conference, Present to Succeed, where he is going to be speaking and showcasing Prezi video and a lot more. And in case you still don't know, I like to say that, Spencer, that whose podcast are you listening to? It's 356labs.com and not 365labs.com.
Yeah.
That's very, very important. So if you want to check us out and what we are doing for some of the biggest brands out there, go and take a look. Thanks for listening and see you in the next one.